Hiya all, Rick here, continuing our look into the early Starfleet tales from around the time of the formation of the United Federation of Planets. From where we left off, Starfleet was pretty much alone in confronting the Romulans' expansion. However, the Star Empire had been fighting another war against the Harkonnens, a war which they had just finished, and as such, they could focus all of their attention on Earth and the coalition of planets. This apocryphal lore is drawn from the Enterprise sequel books that cover the Romulan War of 2155 to 2160, and we pick up in the tail end of 2159. Fresh off their recent victories against the Empire, Starfleet has managed to seize back multiple systems from their elusive adversary, including Altair 6, Deneva, Delta Pavonis, and Beta Virginius. On top of this, they had managed to establish 2 new starbases, one at Beta Virginius and one in orbit of Calder 2. These bases were originally meant to be Starfleet-operated research outposts, or at least with a civilian presence. Instead, with the war on, they were basically forward-operating bases for the fleets. This bolstering, however, did little to detract from Romulan aggression, as they hit Andorian supply lines, and a single bird of prey, the Eye Vane, was encountered by the Starfleet SS Intrepid after completing such a raid. The Enterprise NX-01, the Intrepid, and the Daedalus-class Republic approached the battle-worn Star Empire vessel, only to have it activate its shields, expand them around the 2 Starfleet ships, and vent their warp plasma. The Romulan ship then went to impulse and detonated the plasma bubble, crippling the ships and making its escape. In earnest, Starfleet had caught the vessel unawares, but the ship still managed to emerge the victor insofar as it got away. The Enterprise chose not to pursue, as they also received word that while these attacks had been unfolding, the Star Empire had taken back Altair and were now en route to Deneva. It seems that the harrying of supply lines had been done to divert Starfleet resources to protect these valuable routes, while the Empire attacked major outposts in earnest. Over the next 3 months, Starfleet lost most of its retaken territory, including one of their new starbases. On top of this, the Dralaxians, a species that Starfleet had managed to convince of the Romulan threat, were taken off the board when a Romulan vessel collides with Dralax at superluminal speeds, devastating the world, a tactic they've employed twice before. In early 2160, the Romulans began their push for Earth. In February, Enterprise had been returned to Earth McKinley Station for repairs, so was on hand to help intercept the stealth attack. Evading the Vulcan defense grid was something that the Romulans had become very adept at, and they made it all the way to the Kuiper Belt before their shadow loomed. Asteroids and comets from Sol's orbiting rock and ice fields around 50 AU from the Sun were often used as materials for terraforming. They were launched from the belts towards the needed planet, where they would coast across the intersystem distance until received by fellow waiting ships. For example, on Mars, they could simply bring a ball of ice into its orbit and drop measured chunks to the surface to add water. This is all before terraforming tech such as Genesis and weather control devices. Communications with Iceberg 15 in the Kuiper Belt had been lost, and the ship sent to investigate also vanished. So the NX-01 moved in to take a look and discovered the debris of the SS Franklin, as well as several escape pods. They moved in to recover a pod, only to have it explode as they closed in with an atomic blast. As mentioned in a previous episode, nukes were pretty much outdated by the 22nd century. Even one detonating against a ship's duranium hull probably wouldn't do much, and spaceships are, by necessity, radiation-proofed. Nevertheless, the tactic was obvious. Rescuing escape pods was now a danger, as a bomb going off inside a starship would still cripple it. Not to mention you can still drop a nuke on a planet. It was Lieutenant Mayweather, currently not on the Enterprise, who realised that a small Romulan fleet was coasting along on low power, following the trajectory of the terraforming-bound comets, in a similar tactic that he had used to approach Mars undetected in 2155 to fight terra firma. Once discovered, the Star Empire's sneak attack was easily defeated by Earth defense, but they had gotten close enough to the planet to land several blows. Tunis and Madrid were subjected to brief but devastating orbital bombardment before the Romulan vessels were destroyed. Now it became clear that Earth had the Star Empire's near-complete attention. They had been forced back all the way to their homeworld. Near-complete attention. One looming issue had been diverting Admiral Valdor of the Star Empire's attention. The Warp 7 program that the Romulans had been working on was in fact being run by a splinter faction of Romulans called the Earth-Romulan. It seems that this group, reverse engineering captured Vulcan tech, wanted to use their breakthroughs to seize political favour in the Empire, while Valdor wished to bring the rogue Warp 7 program under his wing, under his control. As such, the project was not yet completed, although nearing breakthrough at the facility in the Cheron system. Agents of Valdor managed to infiltrate and take control of the Cheron base and its 7 Warp 7 prototypes to find them incomplete. This is where Tucker, still undercover, re-enters the picture with his expertise in Vulcan, Romulan and Warp tech. Tucker had been uncovered as a spy by the Romulans, but thanks to his biology-altering drugs he had been taking to maintain his false identity, they mistook him for a Vulcan agent pretending to be a Tal Shiar Romulan, when in reality he was a human Section 31 plant pretending to be a Vulcan who was pretending to be a Romulan. I can't tell anymore if he's making a fantastic secret agent or an awful one. But they basically co-opted his skill in repairing the Warp 7 ships through mind probes, logical manipulations, and constant vigilance when he was working. He was not able to sabotage the project, as he had no doubt been hoping, but he still had a critical role to play in the upcoming Battle of Cheron, which I'll cover in the next video of this series, as it marks the climax of the Earth-Romulan War and the beginnings of the UFP proper. The fact that this tale of ensuring Tucker's survival is so complex is actually made fun of in the book during its epilogue, so it's very self-aware about the craziness it's weaving. But as we move into the final chapter of Earth's first interstellar war, we can see that Starfleet has been forced right back to protect Earth, which itself is no longer safe. Their resources are being drained, but so too are the Romulans. However, it's mostly due to the split war with the Harkonnens and the Romulans' own political scheming that has handicapped the Star Empire, giving Earth time to continue to argue the necessity of intervention towards its coalition allies, which is finally about to pay off. There is no doubt, however, that the coalition's view, humans in particular, of Romulans is deeply altered by these events, booby-trapping escape pods, ambushes that turn out to be busts against the ambushers, ship hijacking weapons and warp-ramming runs on civilian worlds all breed a lot of resentment against the Star Empire, and it would persist for generations. Reading events such as this and being privy to the thoughts of characters such as Archer during this war make the mistrust of Romulus far more weighty when we are confronted with the fearful reactions that the Star Empire produces in numerous Trek series. Bias breeds bias, and xenophobia comes around full circle if you let it. So, thank you for watching this video concerning the Romulan War, and I look forward to recapping the Battle of Cheron as portrayed in these books. After this, I want to continue looking into the early challenges faced by the fledgling UFP from a myriad of other sources, and I'm also planning to collate other interpretations of the Earth-Romulan War, as this is far from the only one, simply a beta canon tale that incorporates the setup of Star Trek Enterprise. So I've been Rick, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.